Hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome to part 9 of our chronological read through the Bible. Today we are starting in verse 27 of chapter 25, and we will go through to verse 5 of chapter 28. This is a section that could be maybe divided into 3 or 4 different complete lessons of Scripture. I just want to hit some highlights here. It could almost be labeled a family of deceivers. This first part, really, it's so sad because it's the sins of the father that the son begins to repeat. So, Isaac heads off towards Egypt. He does not make it to Egypt, but he ends up again in the same border area which his father had been in some 90 years before. It had been 100 years since he had been in Egypt. And once there, seeing how people look upon the beauty of his wife, that makes you almost pause and say, what was it with this family? These women must have been just extremely beautiful. And so he entices his wife, Rebecca, to say the same thing that Abraham had Sarah say. Oh, this is my sister. The thing is, though, is Sarah was his half-sister. Rebecca is not Isaac's sister. So it's a even more of a blatant lie. Not saying that half lies are okay, but it is a full-out blatant lie. And as some time passes, the king looks out and sees a brother and sister in an embrace that brothers and sisters don't do, and he calls Isaac to his chambers and says, certainly, this is your wife. Now, later it speaks of though his crops flourishing and things going well for him, and some would say, well, God didn't punish them. But he lost something incredibly dear to him. And this is something that we all have, and many times it's lost. And that is, he lost his testimony. He would have had a great testimony before the people of that nation if he had told the truth and trusted in the Lord. But he did not. And we see that this sin kind of begins. He ends up reaping the consequences of it as well. And he's pushed out of that land later. I want to move forward, though, to the division, the strife between Esau and Jacob. And, if we were writing a story, Esau's life sounds like an adventure story. I mean, it is, out having adventures and on great hunts, and he's providing for the family. Meanwhile, Jacob, his brother, is staying at the tents. He's living a rather quiet life. He's not the adventurous person. If you were just picking a hero from the characteristics of the two individuals, you would have chosen Esau because you'd say, he's doing something with his life. Meanwhile, Jacob's just sitting at home. Jacob's life resembles more of a soap opera than it does the adventure story. Rebecca, Jacob's mother, Esau's mother, God had told her that the older son would serve the younger. God had revealed to her that the promises of God would go to Jacob. And yet, Jacob and his mother primarily, does not trust the Lord for this situation. Isaac's older now. He's 137 years of age, and he kind of starts, I think, getting into this despair. And it's like, woe is me, my life's coming to an end. Now, I did mention yesterday that at that time, most people were living to 120. So at 137, he's thinking, well, my life's kind of. But he's going to live to be 180. So he's got a long time ahead of him. So he's in despair a little too soon. And I think what we begin seeing is, even though we do see that Isaac builds an altar, he calls on the name of God, there's this doubt still. It's as if he is on the border, not just physically where he ends up on the border of Egypt. He's on the border spiritually. He's not all in with God. And neither is Rebekah. And as she looks at her two sons and her husband wanting to give Esau his blessing, she devises a plan and a scheme. And Esau's gone on the hunt to bring choice venison for his father. And then she decides to create this plan so that her son will get the blessing, her son Jacob will get the blessing, rather than her son Esau. And at this, she brings Jacob into her scheme. He's the homebody. He's listening to his mother. She takes a goat and prepares the meal. She must have been a good cook to be able to make the goat taste like choice venison. She dresses her son up to mimic the hairiness of Esau with the goat skin, and sends him off to deceive his father. And there's a number of lies that take place as he approaches his father. He first lies saying that he is Esau. He lies saying that this is venison. He falls into this list of lies over and over. How sad that he would do that. He also, claims that he's the one that prepared the meal while his mother prepared the meal. So he says he's Esau. He's not Esau. He says he prepared this meal for his father while his mother's the one that prepared it. And he even refers to it as, says, eat my venison while it's goat meat. He receives the blessing. And again, you could have the question of, well, he receives Isaac's blessing. He receives all of these benefits of being the one who is chosen. That was already going to happen. God had revealed that. And if Rebekah was fearing that, remember when the babies were quarreling in her womb, when she feared, we know what she was fearing, that she would lose the child. And then she learns it's two children. And that probably even scared her more. And then the Lord said it's going to be okay. That reveals to her that the children will be born. But he tells her that the older will serve the younger. And all she needed to do at this point, when she was in a state of fear, was say, oh God, my husband, Lord, is about to give the blessing to Esau. What something needs to happen. And the Lord would have acted. But as what happens so many times with people, we all at times find ourselves guilty of this. She takes matters into her own hands and is not willing to look to God to deliver them from that situation, to work through that situation. And the blessing's given to him. And when Esau returns, as he finds out what's happened, he just pours himself out before Isaac, his father, but there's nothing that his father says he can do. One would say, well, Rebekah, though, what happened with her? Well, Jacob, of course, flees. He's told to flee from the home because his brother will kill him. Rebekah never sees her son Jacob again. That was her punishment. She never sees him again. And there was still that loss of testimony. Don't lose your testimony. And don't lose being in the right relationship with God that He desires for you to be in by compromising, by deciding, I want to do things my way. I don't like this. Or just not trusting the Lord. Trust Him. What of Jacob? Oh, he's going to be deceived by his future father-in-law Laban, and we will see this unfold. But Laban, of course, gives Jacob the older sister Leah first instead of Rachel, who he desires to marry. And Laban keeps changing his wages around on him, deceiving him with that. He befalls that punishment as well. And he has this lack of trust until he will eventually end up having to wrestle with God, which we will read about later. I want to encourage you to take today's reading and learn the lesson of trusting the Lord. Look to Him to bring about in your life what He's promised for you. First off, He's promised that He'll never leave us. He'll never forsake us. He's promised us eternal salvation. Anyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. We don't have to work our way to God. We only need to trust Him for the salvation which He freely offers. Brothers and sisters, I hope you're having a blessed day. Until tomorrow, God bless.